where does cyber risk security, forensics, and the whole gamut of privacy and data being balanced, how do organizations deal with it from a security perspective, and how do customers feel when they're doing transactions or when they're disclosing information on social media channels? Because Twitter banking is great as an idea, but people might not be endorsing that Twitter banking channel as much as they would do traditional banking. I'll start with you, sir.
I think today the reason why companies are willing to go the social media route for acquiring customers in personal finance is because there's a very large number who've not yet moved into personal finance. So for us to say that we'll ignore this or we'll try and look at this as a cost, I think in our mind, while we are saying cost, we're all looking at it as an investment. And there is going to be a return on investment, and you're just trying to expand the market. In terms of risks, I think there is, if we get down to transacting through social media, there is absolutely huge risk. I agree that we have to use this channel primarily to educate and to sort of spread literacy, make them aware. And if you can ultimately lead it to an app, which is again controlled, which allows for certain transactions, and that's very tightly sort of regulated in a manner, I think that's where you will try and sort of take care of some of these risks. The fact that it can be hacked into somebody else's transacting, I mean, a whole bunch of things need to be thought through before you use social media for actually going and doing transactions. I think that's a little far distance away.
One is definitely, the moment you put transactions on a platform like social media, there is risk which goes up. But I'm sure that, the way technology is moving, they'll find a way to secure that as well, much more. So you still have Twitter transactions which are reasonably, risk-free, where you can do a mapping and you can, get a registration and you know which handle, which phone it is coming from, etc. So you can do that. But very soon, I'm sure you'll get technology where you can secure an entire piece on a particular device, and then you can enable transactions. So that will also come in, and maybe the tech friends can comment on how that is happening. Just a comment on saying that whether social media can take over and become large. I would say it's not just about social media. Let's just look at the entire digital here. So there are banks in Europe which are purely digital banks. They don't have a single branch. There is robo-advisory which is catching on to a large extent, where there is very little or practically no human interface. And there are just tools and what we call tools, robo-advisory. So you go and you do your planning, etc., and you do an interaction through a tool which is there. And so all this is catching up. So I'm not sure whether we can make a blanket statement saying that social media you always need a person to do planning, because the way generations move, the way trends change can be dramatic, and people can be very comfortable just talking to a computer and getting advice from a computer, and then maybe taking their decisions. That might really come in. So just my closing comment that social media is, I think, a big channel. It provides a huge amount of opportunity. Definitely you cannot ignore it, and what it can lead to and evolve further, it's still out in the open, and next few years will tell us how the larger potential.
I think there are 2 points I would like to add. There is a social media risk of a different kind, which is inside out from the organization, right? We have been talking about enabling transactions and customers reaching us, and the risk in that which is inherent, and we all know that. There's another risk that social media actually is graying out the different line between your professional life and your social life. So there's a definitive risk around data management and data leakage within the organization to outside using social media. We, in our moment of pride or in a moment of joy, we can post numbers like, I've met my sales target of so much, right? And I'm happy I got awarded as the best sales guy for the West Zone, for example. What you are essentially doing, you're actually revealing to your competitor and your friends what you have done business for, right? Which is not prudent at that stage, right? So there is a risk which I think organizations have to think through. We are all thinking. There's too much thought going in. I think it has to become a very structured area where, and I like his question that he had asked initially, is we need to create social media regulator itself to understand what it means for us, because a data leakage from inside out is a very big issue for us. And no matter how many controls you put how many technology controls, process controls you put, right? You can't take away that risk. That's one. The second thing is all organizations are actually engaging in social media for employee engagement programs, right? And many employees leave, but they are still part of those groups, right? They have friends, and I think Govind mentioned a very interesting point is one comment in a social media, if it's good, doesn't sort of bring you so much reputational value. If it's bad, it brings you 10 times, 100 times more disruptive reputational value, right? So social media as a risk entity, I would say, has a pros and cons. It's not a very clear thought through area because the speed in which people got latched onto social media was far faster than when our regulators or the governing bodies actually thought of creating a forum where we can control that. And we need to look at it both inside out and outside in because otherwise it's going to be a bit of a mess. It's difficult, right? Right now you have companies who actually engage with lot of companies, in fact with Reliance as well, who actually monitor social media on a day in, day out basis. They look at comments from people and you have to reply to them not as a standard answer, thank you for your response, we appreciate, we understand your inconvenience caused. We'll have to be really subjective and objective to the question that he's asking if it's a grievance because it will otherwise go viral. So there's a huge manpower requirement that comes in. There's a huge response education that comes in, right? And it's all risk, brand, reputational, compliance, legal, customer loss. So I don't know. We'll have to probably work towards making a structured approach to this rather than, the knee-jerk reactions that all the organizations are doing right now because of a lack of a structure model around it as opposed to a legacy risk models that you have across every business.